I am so very honored to be asked to speak here today and to receive this honorary doctorate. To the graduates of 2024, I hope you feel very proud of what you've accomplished and relieved that this day is finally here. I imagine that these feelings are intermingled with a certain amount of fear. Fear of what comes next and how you will overcome the inner and outer obstacles of your life. It's a complicated world. We're all complicated people, with not only a world and a life to grapple with, but just as importantly and perhaps most challengingly, our chaotic, messy inner selves. There are many things to be legitimately afraid of. Don't worry, I won't list them. But I do want to talk about fear, because right now, as I accept this honor, I am standing alongside my fear. I have struggled for my entire adult life with terrible, at times debilitating stage fright. And when I walk up onto a stage, I don't walk up alone. My anxiety walks up here with me. I used to battle it, now I befriend it. What I have learned over the last decade or so is that if you simply run away from what you were afraid of, the fear gets bigger. The only way to gauge the shape and size of something and potentially change it is to look at it from every angle. Buddhists talk about walking around a problem as though it's a statue, getting a sense of it from every possible perspective. So I'd like to share with you what the process has looked like for me, because I think of being on stage alongside my fear in this spirit. My stage fright began when I was 15 years old, when I was playing the lead role in Alice Through the Looking Glass at Stratford. I didn't know if I could handle being on stage, and I had doubts that I should have been given such a big role, given this was my first stage experience. So after a good start, I fumbled a little. And then because of the fumble, I became afraid in a way that drenched my whole body in sweat in an instant and made my heart smash so violently within my chest that I thought it might explode clear through my skin. And the thought of other people discovering this fear, the shame of anyone knowing that I had this terror, was even more terrifying to me than the fear of being on stage itself. I cannot, standing here today, remember what it felt like to be certain that expressing a fear would make it worse, that the humiliation of people knowing I had a fear could be worse than the agony of living with it alone and unexpressed. But as I'm sure many of you would agree, when you're only in conversation with yourself about your anxiety, logic can take some very twisted turns. So I woke up scared, I went to bed scared. I'd sob in the fetal position in the basement of the theater before every show. Before I went on stage each night, I would bargain with myself like a scam artist. I would say in a whisper, I promise you, Sarah, I promise you that if you get through this one show, just this one show, I will never, ever make you do this again. You will never have to go on stage again for the rest of your life. But it was a lie. There was always another show and another one, and somewhere along the way I kicked the liar that was conning me into these false bargains in the face. Betrayed by the bad deals handed to me by my broken self, I knew I had to find another way out. It's a long story how I got out of the play, but it involved a massive lie about a pre-existing medical condition. By the time I finally dropped out, I had made it through 58 shows of 65. I was too ashamed and perhaps too young to know how to ask for help. I was embarrassed by having the fear at all, and I was sure that this was proof that I really was a fraud after all, undeserving of my place on that stage. I told no one for many years. I often wonder how differently I would have carried my stage fright throughout my life if I'd been able to admit my fear and reach out for help at any point in that process. I ran away from the fear, and so the fear grew. After escaping that play, I remained for so many years terrified by the thought of being on stage. So why am I here? Why would I voluntarily step out onto a stage when it is the stuff of nightmares for me? Deciding to do something that terrifies me is a relatively new concept for me. About 9 years ago, I suffered a serious concussion, and I was given a lot of advice from doctors, and I took it all. I was told to lie in bed in the dark and to limit activities that aggravated my symptoms, to come up to the threshold of what I could handle, and then go back down before it hurt too much. I was told to rest a lot. Partially as a result of this advice, my symptoms became worse, and along with them, I developed other ones. After limiting my life so severely, depression also set in alongside the brain fog and headaches. After 3.5 years of struggling to keep up with daily life, I sought help at a clinic where I was given what was to me revolutionary advice. The doctor who treated me, Dr. Michael Collins, said to me, "If you only remember one thing from our meeting today, remember this: run towards the danger." I was told that I should now view symptoms not as something to be avoided, but as opportunities to increase my threshold of tolerance. I must now learn how to run into the discomfort instead of away from it. My avoidance of the things that had bothered me were actually making it more and more difficult for my brain to cope with them. I needed to retrain my brain to strength. In order to recover, I required daily exposure to anything that triggered symptoms or caused me pain. So I threw myself into this program of exposure therapy to anything and everything that had hurt my head since my concussion. I greeted every fear as something to walk through or alongside, and after 6 weeks of very hard work and a lot of discomfort, I had my brain back for the first time in years. More importantly, I no longer interpreted my anxiety as my wisest gut instinct. I wrote a book I was terrified of writing, and I went back to work directing a film, which was something I had been certain I wouldn't have the courage to do again. I learned something about resilience, which wasn't, with all the self-help books I'd read, something I'd thought much about. And so that brings me to this moment here with you. When measured, the symptoms of trauma in people who have just experienced a major car crash are equivalent to those of people with stage fright when about to go on stage. But now I feel lucky to be standing here before you, nervous, but not frightened of the nervousness. I tend to say yes to hard things now, including being on stage whenever possible, especially when it's as meaningful as it is for me today. As a result, my nervous system has calmed down about it. My brain and body no longer send out alarm bells at the thought of it. I've learned to walk alongside my anxiety. It is my frequent companion and conversation partner, but it is no longer an instruction manual or a stop sign. I can think of no greater honor than to speak to you and to be here with you today as you celebrate what you've accomplished, to get to congratulate you and to say to you, have a beautiful life, don't always avoid the edges, ask for help, admit your terror to someone you can trust. Don't assume that you aren't equal to what you want. It's okay to be scared and to feel like a fraud. Most of us do. Just go try to do it all anyway. And if your anxiety tells you that you can't do it, give it a little pat on the hand, thank it for trying to protect you, and tell it it's allowed to come along for the thrilling ride. It's just not allowed to block the driveway. Thank you for this great honor, and congratulations.